How do we pay our teachers more? That is a question that keeps principals, district leaders, superintendents, and policymakers up at night. As a high school math teacher, I loved teaching. I loved my kids, I loved my families, I loved the content, I loved it all. In my classroom, my kids were breaking down barriers. I saw the student who had previously failed his last math class achieve one of the highest scores on our state exam. I saw the student who said to me that he wasn't the college type hand me his college acceptance letter. In my classroom, my kids were defying stereotypes. They were doing what society said it was too late for them to do. In my classroom, I was changing the world. I believe that teaching is one of the most patriotic acts in this country. But as a teacher, I did not feel patriotic. I felt broke. I felt very broke. I was struggling on a salary of $33,000. But I knew that this was my life's work and purpose. I knew that I wanted to reach even more kids. And I knew that I wanted to create a different reality for our teachers. So I became a principal. How do we pay our teachers more? Well, to answer that question, it requires us to think about school a little different. And that's tough because school is one of the few experiences, good or bad, that we all share. And for most of us, that's a teacher in the front of a classroom with a group of students. For most of us, I'm sure that vision probably doesn't include one of my favorite people, Beyonce. But she is exactly who I think about when I think about school differently. Take a moment and think about all the different venues where Beyonce has performed. The Super Bowl, Madison Square Garden, the Grammys, the BET Awards, some of the largest venues in the US and in the world. So how does she get access to them? Well, let's look at her data. She has released 6 solo albums. Each one of them went straight to #1. Therefore, there is a 100% probability if Beyonce drops an album tomorrow, it will be #1. And an entertainer's job is to make people feel. And Beyonce certainly excels at that. When I listen to her music, I feel confident and empowered in my identity as a Black woman. So with such a clear impact, we want her to reach as many people as possible, and not just through recordings, but live. Great data leads to access to a larger venue, which leads to an even greater impact. So how does this apply to paying our teachers more? Well, there are Beyonce educators in every single school building dropping #1 albums year after year in the form of mind-blowing results with their kids. So with great data, they should receive access to a larger venue, which would lead to an even greater impact. But this is not the case in education, because for a teacher, there is really only one venue, a classroom. It is also incredibly difficult to find a Beyonce educator to place in every single classroom in a building. And this is something that all schools struggle with. However, this challenge is multiplied in low-income communities. At Ranson IB Middle School, where I am the proud principal, 65% of our scholars come to us below grade level. So we do not have time to wait on a Beyonce educator to magically materialize in every single classroom. So rather than asking the question, how can we place a Beyonce educator in every single classroom, we flipped the question. How can we rethink our venues and place every child in front of a Beyonce educator while paying that educator more? Here's how we did it. Meet Bobby Miles. Mr. Miles was actually a pre-med major at Winston-Salem State University. And his dreams to be a pediatrician were completely derailed after a summer medical internship, which he hated. So a mentor suggested to him that given his love for kids, he considered teaching. And it was something that he thought about before, but shied away from after feeling the profession wasn't respected. But he took the risk, and 10 years ago, he joined the Ranson IB family as a 6th grade science teacher. And pretty soon, he made his mark. He had some of the highest science data in the district. He was also a District Teacher of the Year finalist. So he may not look like Beyonce, but he is definitely a Beyonce educator. But at the time, Mr. Miles was only reaching 120 students, which was just 10% of our school population. So he was working really hard and getting great results, but his venue was holding him back. Today, Mr. Miles reaches 937 scholars, which is 100% of our school population. Now, how we did it is not rocket science. We just simply rethought our venues. 5 years ago, we partnered with an organization called Public Impact, and through that partnership, we created what's called an opportunity culture. An opportunity culture expands the reach of effective educators to reach more students while paying that educator more. So there's many ways to do this, but the way that we chose is to have excellent educators leading teacher teams. So there was a new position that we created called a multi-classroom leader, or we like to call it an MCL. Mr. Miles was one of our first MCLs. And in this role, he spent his time in primarily 3 ways. The first is that he created all the lesson plans for the entire science department. So at Ranson IB, we have 5 science teachers, and every single day, each one of those teachers is delivering a lesson created by Mr. Miles. So even though he cannot physically be in 5 places at once, his instruction is there. The second way that he spends his time is that he serves as the instructional coach for those 5 science teachers. So every single week, he visits their classroom, and he has a locked-in feedback time to celebrate what's going really well and identify one bite-sized action step for the next week. And lastly, but most importantly, Mr. Miles still gets to be a teacher. The last thing that we want to do is provide only one opportunity for our teachers to excel in the profession and having them leave the classroom. So every single week, Mr. Miles sits down with his teachers and they analyze data to determine what students need a little bit more help. And he creates a lesson plan tailored to their needs, and he delivers that lesson plan himself in a small group setting. Mr. Miles, just like Beyonce, creates really strong connections with kids. Black males make up less than 2% of the teaching profession. However, at Ranson IB, 1 in 3 of our students is a black boy. So not only have we expanded Mr. Miles' instructional impact, but we've expanded the opportunity for our black boys to see themselves in their teacher. So we've created an opportunity for culture for our teachers, but we've also created an opportunity culture for our kids. Every single child comes to us at a different starting point and a unique way in which they learn. And it is our responsibility as educators to meet them where they are and to create a personalized learning experience for every single child. So there was a second position that we created through opportunity culture called a blended learning teacher. Meet Molly Whalen. Miss Whalen was actually an experienced math teacher, and she had left the classroom to explore her interests in graduate school to become a social worker. And while there, she deeply missed the classroom. So she moved back to Charlotte and joined the Ranson IB family as a 7th grade math teacher. And after just 1 year, it was so clear that Miss Whalen was a Beyonce educator. Students at all levels in her classroom made high growth, meaning that they achieved more than a year's worth of growth in less than a year's time. So we approached her about taking on this new position of becoming a blended learning teacher, or for the sake of an acronym, we call it a BLT. And in the role of being a BLT, she would take what she knew about great instruction and combine that with the use of technology to create a personalized learning experience for her students. So in her classroom, she would have 2 groups of students. One group who would need just a little bit more help would be with her face-to-face engaged in instruction. The second group of students would be online engaged in a lesson that she created. Halfway through the lesson, they would switch. The students previously with her were now online, practicing what they just learned, and the students previously online are now with her, enriching that content. She was so phenomenal in this position that we could not stop there. Today, Miss Whalen is an MCL, just like Mr. Miles, leading a teaching team of 3 8th grade math teachers. She is now reaching 323 students, which is a third of our building, and she is assisting and supporting those teachers in implementing the same blended learning model that she had in her classroom. So, we've created this opportunity culture for our teachers, and we've created this opportunity culture for our kids. But how does this actually pay our teachers more? Well, I receive my budget prior to the beginning of every school year, and through flexibility that I have, I can create positions. And through this flexibility, I can trade and create our opportunity culture positions, adding at least $16,000 onto their teacher base salary. And this is something that I'm doing within my existing budget. So this does not cost me more, it does not cost the district more. And the great thing about this is that it doesn't go away in comparison to some grant supplement programs. So this is truly sustainable. It won't go away in a year or even 5 years. And what's been the impact of opportunity culture in our building? Well, our staff, they're happier. There's been some conversation around whether it's fair to pay some teachers more than others, but our teachers truly value the support of their MCL. No longer are teachers staying up late at night trying to figure out what they're teaching the next day. They have the support of their MCL. And we are making teaching more sustainable through improving work-life balance. Secondly, our teachers are getting better faster. They are receiving feedback every single week from a Beyonce educator. And when our teachers get better, our kids get better. And lastly, but most importantly, our kids are learning. We have been ranked number 2 in the district for our growth in language arts and number 3 in the district for our growth in science. Opportunity culture is making a difference. I said before that I believe that teaching is one of the most patriotic acts in this country. Every single day, parents send their greatest gift to a teacher. The fate of this country rests on the shoulders of our teachers. The leaders of tomorrow are sitting in classrooms today with our teachers. If we do not change the way that we pay our teachers because their pay does not reflect this impact, more teachers will continue to leave the profession because they are tired of working 2 or 3 jobs just to provide for their family. Or even worse, those who have the potential to be great teachers, just like Mr. Miles and Miss Whalen, won't even consider their profession at all. Opportunity culture, it makes a difference. And we took the risk 5 years ago at Ranson IB to say yes to public impact and being one of the first district schools in the nation to change the way we pay our teachers. So we're serving not just as the case study of how to make this happen, but we're proving that it's possible. Every student, everywhere, every day deserves access to a great teacher. And at Ranson IB, that is not a slogan, it is a reality. Thank you.